with your blue from your little paint set or whatever paints you have. You're going to mix your blue here. This is going to be your sky. Mix your blue. And what you're going to do is you're going to come in here and you're going to wet down this whole entire sky with paint, or with water. Sorry about that. Get it all covered with water. I'm not going to worry about some of these darker lines right now. We can worry about that later. This is your first one maybe, so this is just your first painting. We're just going to make it work. Okay, it's all covered with water. I'm going to go over here to my little paint set, and I'm going to start dropping paint into the sky. Now my little thing is let the water do the work. See how the water is just kind of swirling around there? You can push it a little bit with your brush. A sky, well, not always in Arizona. Your sky is usually got some little clouds in it, but not here. But it doesn't have to be solid. Let the water do some cool things here, and let the water do the work. The sky usually isn't all one color of blue. So let's just that. Okay. Sky is in. Now I'm going to find my water, and I'm going to do the same thing. There's some water here. When I say water, I mean water in the pitcher, not water from my water paint stuff. Okay. So I've got my water in my water. And again, I'm going to start dropping my paint in. Now, if you look into the distance, it kind of gets foggy and kind of goes away. So we're going to have lighter water here at the back, and the water is going to get darker as it comes forward. And I'll show you how to do, we might have to do this. I'm going to start here and make this darker here. Get really dark. And then as we go up, we're going to get lighter. To do that, now I didn't stick my brush into the paint again, so I'm going to just do this. See how it's darker here and it's getting lighter as you go back. We're going to put a little more in here and then just barely dab this in here. And if you want to do this again, or you want your water darker, let this totally dry and we'll hit it again. But voila, it's done. We're going to stop now, let this dry. Because one of the rules is that you don't want to paint something else that's touching your place that's already wet, or your colors are going to run together and you'll have a mess. Okay, we'll let this dry and then go on to the next step. Next, we're going to do the mountains. Our blue is totally dry. We set it out in the hot Arizona sun. You can set watercolor out in the sun, but do not set your oils or acrylics out in the sun. It changes the chemical composition of it. So watercolors you can sit outside and they dry really, really fast. So I'm going to go in here again and I'm going to put water into the farthest away mountains. Now since these mountains and clearing back here are farthest away, they're going to be a lighter color than the mountains that are up close. And it looks like, let's see, where am I? Okay, we've got two different colors of purple mountains here, so. Okay, go to my little paint box, grab some purple paint. And I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to just lightly set these in here. Okay, and since this is the same color, and we do kind of have a little barrier here to keep us, separate this from this, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put the darker purple here. I'm not going to do that because if I can see what happened right here, see where this water now is going into here, and I don't want that to happen. So we've got to let this dry. And we let this dry and we'll be right back. Our light purple mountains are now dry. Now we're going to go down into the next set of purple mountains. And again, you put in the water. Then this purple is going to be darker, so we make that darker than the other one. Yeah, there we go. We're going to do a good contrast here. That's probably too dark, but yeah, I like it, so I'm just gonna leave it. Yeah, it's probably a little too dark. Just gonna get some of this out of here. Well, there's a good trick. You don't want it so dark. Take your paper towel and just kind of dab it. Now, I'm gonna take this and let it dry, and I'll be back. Now we're gonna work on the ground color. We're gonna need a really dark color here, and this is brown, black, and orange, to a really light color. The dark brown is gonna start here in the front, and then we'll have our light color to the back, and we'll just work our values from the front to the back, going dark to light. And we might have to work on this. This might not be as easy, but we'll work on it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to wet my, this should have been clear water, but it's got some brown in it, so let's use clear water. We don't really want to use dirty water. And there. And what we're getting here is this first bunch of rocks, this first arch that's already got some speckles in it. Oops, that wasn't good. Now I got water down into here, which is not good because the water's going to want to go down there now. Might have to stop and let that dry. But we're going to do the same thing. Come in here and then just let the... Yeah, see, big mistake here. I'm going to try to dry this here, so I don't want that water going in. I wasn't paying attention. I'm going to just put this, drop this dark brown in here and let it swirl around and let it do its thing, because that's what makes your painting unique and your painting. So there we go. Now I'm going to let that dry and then come back and do the rest of this, because this does connect to here. So we'll see you later. Good morning. Ready to start painting again this morning. I had some major water running issues because I thought I was going to paint this and this at the same time. Not going to happen. So I painted this. I mixed up some brown, a little bit of black, and some orange to get this color out of your little paint box. Now, I don't normally ever use black. In this case, it's okay, but usually I'll use Payne's Gray instead of black, or I mix my own black. But that's a more advanced lesson, and we won't worry about that now. But mix together some black, some orange, and you'll get a color somewhat like that, and paint your first little rock outcrop there. And then we're going to go on to the next one. Now this next area is lighter than this one. We'll probably go back and repaint this one again to get it darker. But for now, what I want you to do is come in here and just wet down the top part with clean water, not brown water. Come in here and wet down your next layer of rock. Now I want this next color to be just a little bit lighter than this color. And if we get this too dark here, we can go back and darken up this, and then when we're all done. But to make it darker, just use more orange in it, and that'll put a little more orange in it into your black and brown, and that will kind of make it turn more of a little terracotta color. And then the intensity of the color, or the brightness of the, not only the brightness, the intensity of it will drop down. And also I'm not putting it on as thick, so I want this to be lighter than that. Now don't paint your little shadow areas here, just the top part of this rock formation, and let the water do the work. As you can see, it'll do its thing here. Now if you're paying attention to light, if the sun's coming up here, or the moon, or whatever that is, the top part of your rock formation here will be a lighter color brown. You can do that if you want to, but it doesn't really matter in this picture. So I'm gonna just darken this up. Now you see I've left that light up there just because I'm taking that into a factor. Now I've rinsed my brush out, and I'm going to come up here and I'm going to pull this color up into there. It probably needs to be just a little bit darker, because we have to take in consideration where we'll have to paint those rocks back behind there, and they'll have to be a lighter color, and we don't want to run out of our palette of light colors until we get up to the top. I'm going to go in and make this a little bit darker. Since it is such a different hue than this one, oops, I ran out. Oh, there we go. I'm just going to go ahead and put a little more color into that. And then we will let this dry. And then we'll go on to the next step. On to the next step. You kind of know the program, so what you're going to do is take clean water and wet down your next layer of rock here. I have a little bit of brown there, don't worry about that. A little splatter hit it. I put my glasses on this time so I could see all the little places I was missing. So I've got some white space here, but we'll take care of that later. Now to get, I want this next layer of rock lighter, so I'm going to start. This is orange and brown. Mixed up a little bit of orange and brown here, and I need this just a little bit darker, so I'm going to put a little more brown in here. Maybe a little more orangey terracotta. Oops, there you go. It's light, you see this, it's lighter and a little more orangey than this color, so that's the color I'm going to use for this mixed area. And then again, I'm going to go in here, lay this in. And there is some little white edges here, but we'll take care of that when we're all said and done. Now I put, like I said, I put a little more orange in this color and lightened it up with putting more water in it. And I can already see I forgot to wet this area here. I think some of you can see that this isn't as hard as it looked. It's a pretty easy way to do watercolor on this type of a drawing. Yeah, that was a cat hair. Cat hair always likes to interrupt me. Okay, I'm going to remember, whoops, that was the dirty water, not the clean water. Oh, I really made a good mistake here, you guys. Okay, I'm just going to keep this in this file because I'll show you, I painted the wrong rock. I don't know how I did that. It's morning. I'm going to see how I removed that paint. I just went in and wet it because what I want to do is paint this one, not that one. There we go. I'm sorry, it's morning. I was up at 4 o'clock this morning letting dogs out and cats out and in and feeding them, so sometimes my mornings don't work so good. Okay. I'm going to Drop a little more paint into here. Darken that up. Now, remember, as you noticed, I'm painting the whole spot, the whole area, because if you only paint just a little bit of it, you're going to have these little lines that run through it, and you don't want that. Some more color into that one. Okay, we'll let that dry. Oh, wait a minute. I'm going to go down here and again drop some water in there. And I want my really dark paint color with the black added to it back, so I'll need to put a little more black into my palette here. So what I'm going to do is put these shadows here in this one. Can do that one. And we're going to do this next one here. We're not going to do this one yet because it's connected to that one and it's wet and the paint will run together no matter how hard I try to keep them apart. So now I just went in and grabbed some plain old black, but not very much because you can see how black goes a long ways. It's a very powerful color. And sometimes it can just like totally overbear your painting. Now, when this dries here, I'll probably go back in and I'm going to darken this rock crop here to make it more dark like these, and that'll stand out a little more. And then we're going to let it dry. We are ready for the next step. What I did is I came in here and I simplified this pattern just a little bit. In your pattern, there's a line running down right here. I took that out and took my masking fluid and made it go this way. And there was a line running up here. I took that line out. So if you see this on yours, you can just take an eraser, a good eraser, and erase off the masking fluid or the rubber cement, put another little line there and remove that one, and this will simplify this pattern a little bit, make it easier to paint. Next program we are going to do, let's see, it's the next one, which is this one. Make sure your masking fluid and your rubber cement has set up before you do this. But we're going to go ahead and do this one. And I'm going to use a little bit lighter color of the terracotta. Now I know this color and this color are the same color right now because this is the place I messed up, but we're going to let this dry, and then next time we will fix we'll fix it by making this lighter back here, or making this, we need to make this darker is what we need to do. So let's do this. Let's make it go a little bit more of an orangey color, because then that will take away from the brown and make it look like it's a different layer. So a little bit different color than that. Okay, what we're going to do in this time, this one also, is we're going to work back here. Now we want this really, really light, so let's go in and put in our water. Make sure your water's clean. Now I've got a little bit of purple here, but hey, that happens. And I'm going to take more of a really orange color, but I want it really, really light. Here I'm going to go more of orange, but I'm going to do as light as I can get it. And to do that, you just add more water to it, and that'll really lighten it out. And then I'm going to go in here and just drop this in here, because these are just really faint little hills back, or hills, rock features back here. It's just orange watered way down. And then you know the program. We're going to let this dry. I dump a little more color into this one. And it's an orange, way orange. You can kind of tell that. It's more orange than this color. This color is more brown. And this is trying to play into the other one. And we'll let it dry, and we'll go from there. Next lesson. We're going with the next rock formation, which is the one I messed up earlier. Now we want to make that a lighter color. Actually, this color is about the right color that's already in there. But and then I'm going up to this next layer up here. We'll figure out what to do with that guy when we get done with this layer. Now we want this layer darker than this layer. And we're probably going to run out of layer colors, but we'll figure out what we'll do with that later here. I know what I'm going to do, but I just can't do it now. So anyway, let's make... I'm going to put a little more orange into the color that I used for that. And make it just a little bit darker. And we'll let this dry. Next step. We need to figure out where we're at. I'm going to go down here and get this put in. This is going to be your black brown color, but not so much black in this one. More of a dark brown. Don't have enough water on there. It doesn't want to go. There we go. Now we're going to find our next little spot of land or rocks. We're going to put this in here. I don't think we're going to do this area over here. Let's just put this one color and see what happens. Now it needs to be lighter than this and lighter than that. So, but don't worry about it too much because we can fix this a little bit when we go back down here and darken things up. Whoa, that's orange. I didn't mean to do that, but let's just do this. I kind of like that. Putting a little brown into it to kind of calm that down just a little bit. And take some of that color and throw it over here. Let's see how that goes. Now what I'm going to do is come over here and I'm going to wet this whole area down again. And I'm going to make this go darker. I want all this darker so I can have my lights further apart up here. Really not further apart, but a little bit more. And again, we were going to do the brown, a little bit of orange, and just a little bit of black. And I'm using my this little paint pads, or pans, I guess they're called, paint pans. That was way too much black. You can see what I'm mixing here. Way too much black. I'm going to throw some more brown in there. But I think we're going to leave it. Come in here and make this a really dark brown here. Okay, next step. Oh, let's work on the sky while we're at it. You notice my moon's a little bit, or sun, or whatever it is, a little bit wonky up here. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to totally cover the sky. Make sure you have clean water. Mine's got a little bit of brown in it. And I want to round this out a little bit. So I'm going to wet down the whole sky. Now I went ahead and I took my stuff off my moon, my masking fluid, because I knew it was going to be kind of weird shaped. If yours is how you want it, you don't really do this, but you do maybe want to push your sky color just a little bit. It'll give it a little more color. There we go. Get my blue from my paint box. I'm going to fix this moon thing here a little bit. Get some of those little jags out of there. Now this is where I'm going to be going over this whole area again with the blue. And again, leaving some of the cloudy stuff in there, but just making that a little bit darker. You can kind of see that brightened it up quite well. I repainted the whole area. Rounded out my moon a little bit. Let's see here. And remember I told you about this little area here? I wondered what I was going to do with it. I think I'm going to go ahead and put him in as purple. Because if you can see here, even though there's not a line there, it's definitely darker purple down at the bottom and go light. So I'm just going to put some darker purple down in there. I think that'll be okay. Really put some dark purple in there. And then I'm going to go back over here and I'm going to re-wet the whole thing. some more purple. I just want this dark purple down in here. I don't want to get it up in here. I want to kind of let it do what this is doing here. It won't do exactly like that. But I want the purple dark down here at the bottom. I think I'm going to go ahead and redo this one too, just for the fun of it. I'm just putting the purple down here at the bottom, and that. This one's kind of rolling off to the edge. There, I think I like that. Okay, I'm going to let this dry, and I'll see you in a little while. Okay, I took the blow dryer to this to dry it a little faster. Make sure you've got clean water. And we're going to start on the next little area of land here. This one right here. This one here. And this one here. And this one. Just getting, I'm trying to make it darker than this, but I don't want it as dark as that, so we'll see what happens here when I do this. Now, like I did over here, I went over this again. We'll probably go over this, some of these a few times just to get our values right. But trying to get it darker than this one above it. Now remember we darkened this one up before in the last video. Now I'm going to darken this one a little bit. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to wet this whole area down. And using my black brown, but not as dark as this, I'm going to go back in here and redo this a bit. I'm going to hit this darker color on the bottom side of this arch and maybe leave it lighter up there just to give it some light on the top of it for the fun of it. Now we don't want these two colors the same, so or these two are they're the same color, different value. So I'm blend this just a little bit here to give that some interest. Let's see, I think I'm going to have to let that dry. I have to let it dry, but you can kind of see what we're doing. We're just kind of pushing some of these colors so that when we get up in here, we can have some color differences. So that's that step. Okay, we've got a pretty good difference between this one and this one. So what I'm going to do is make this a little darker because it's the same color as this almost. So we're going to go in here, wet this all down. This is when my OCD takes over. You don't have to be so picky with yours if you don't want to. But I'm trying to get my values to go back in steps from darker to lighter. Light, I think, is hitting that. Yeah, there you go. What to do with this little guy? I guess we're going to just make him somewhat the same color. Yes. Whoops, that was wet there, so you can see how the water ran together there. So, all those things I told you not to do, we just did it. Now you know why I say don't do it. Yeah, we'll kind of leave that like that. Go in and make out. This is, make this just a little bit darker. I'm trying. Gonna make this one just a little bit darker here. I put more of a brown in that instead of the orange, because that'll give it a little bit different contrast than the ones around it. Okay, go in and put a little more in here. Okay, once you get this all done, or you're happy with it, you're going to find an eraser. And I thought I had one sitting here. This is not the kind of eraser I like. I like those little gray artist erasers. They work the best. But I don't have that. But just make sure your eraser works pretty good. And then go in there and erase off your, whoops, you can't see. Erase off your masking fluid or your rubber cement. Now don't do this while it's wet. It does not work well. But if you've got rubber cement, it's not as hard to get off as this stuff is, because this has been heat treated several times, and I'm sure that plays part of it. Let's see, I'm making. And this is how you get those white lines in that. If the white lines are too thick, you can kind of go back in and thin them out a little bit if you want to. It's just a kind of a different way of doing watercolor, or a different look than normal landscapes that they do watercolor with. This is a little bit of an abstract deal. But now you can kind of see how that's all turning out. Like I said, just make sure wherever you're erasing that it's not wet. Your paper will not be happy if you try to erase it when it's wet. Okay, I'm going to turn this off, let this dry, erase on it a little more, and we'll be back to do some touch-up. Okay, this is your last lesson. I've gone in here and I've taken all the masking fluid off. I used an eraser to take it off. I am going to go back in here and darken the water up a little bit. I started doing it here, but I thought I would show you. If you're going to rework this, put your rubber cement back in. I'm going to try to just be really careful when I do this, and be really careful. Just put in where the blue is, because I don't want to go over my little white lines. But I do want my water darker. I was going to do this before I took the masking fluid off and I forgot. So, just going to put a little more blue in here. It'll give a little more life to this painting, I think. But I'm going to go darker as I get down into here. Be careful. Like I said, if you don't put your rubber cement back in, be really careful. Oops. I didn't wet this all down. And that gave that a little bit more life. And then I also am going to go up here and darken the tops of these cliffs, rocks that are up here. Be careful. I don't have masking fluid on here. That's too dark. But I just want to get these just a little bit darker up in here. Now I'm going to paint the whole thing. There are some white lines down in here I just ran over, but and down here where I don't want to change the color a whole lot, I just used water. But I mostly just kept that darker color around the top. A little more interest in those. Remember, let the water do the work. There you go. And then we're ready to take the tape off. Now when you take the tape off, be very, very careful. Depending on your watercolor paper, it could tear. So just be really careful. What I do is and this is wet. I would suggest that this be dry before you try this, but hang on to the edge of your paper and do this, because your paper could tear. Oh, just like that. It just, whoops, you didn't see it. Oops. My paper tore a little bit there because I wasn't hanging on to it. So be really careful. Try and do this over here again. hang on to your paper here. You can see here I did not hang on to this and it tore the paper right over here, but I don't need, it's over here and I don't need it. But hang on to your paper. Put your finger down here, hold the paper down, and take your paper off, or take your tape off. That'll keep your paper from tearing so much. Again, we're going to do this. Hold that down. Hold it down. Just got into the wet. Be careful if it's wet. I can say let it dry first before you try taking your tape off. Okay, now you get to sign it. See if I can get a full shot of it. If I could get untangled from the tape. Oh. Okay. Get a full shot. If I can get a full shot here. Oh my, if I knew how to run these camera things, it would help, but we can get a, it's telling me it's, there we go. Ah. Well, at least I learned a new trick. So, there's your painting. Go ahead, put your name on it, and you're done. We'll see you next time. Bye.